This episode of Macabre at Midnight contains content which may be too intense for some listeners, including violence, self-harm, and animal cruelty. Listener discretion is advised.
I think I know what that sound is.
It's the sound of me sucking your blood! Hello, hauntlings. My name is Alyssa, and this is my ghoulishly gorgeous wife and co-host, Lindsay. This is Macabre at Midnight, where we rate all things that sit on a scale, starting with the adorably spooky and ending with the truly disturbing. On tonight's episode, we are going to be looking at
Count Dracula.
Count Dracula. So, there's a Pomeranian viciously licking my left hand. I can't get him to back up.
Oh no.
We tested this setup with the mics. I literally was like screaming into my mic to see if it would echo into Lindsay's, and it did not. So I think we finally figured out the setup. We have like a whole bunch of stuffed animals and blankets on shelves behind her.
Yay.
There's a stuffed animal net and bookshelf behind me. So I think we finally got it. If it echoes after this, I don't even know. I don't even know.
Makeshift soundproofing.
Yeah.
At its finest.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
So, tonight, on this fateful night, I'm going to take you back in time.
Ooh.
Into the 15th century.
You know what? I just realized the moon tonight is kind of like a spooky Dracula moon.
Perfect.
She's accenting. Do you hear all this accenting?
I apologize for my terrible accents. I also apologize in advance for every single Romanian name I'm going to say wrong.
Yeah, sorry. We're no good with, other cultural phonetics.
Yeah, I don't speak Romanian. I've never tried, but tonight I'm going to. It's probably going to go awful. So
tonight I'm going to try.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, we're going back in time to the 15th century.
That's the 1400s.
That's right. And we're going into
Transylvania?
Well, close.
Is Transylvania a real place?
It is. Yes, so
okay,
Transylvania.
I thought so.
At the time of the 15th century, actually, Transylvania was part of Hungary.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we have Transylvania as part of Hungary. And then we have Wallachia, which is just south of Transylvania.
Okay.
It is the northern province to Romania.
Okay.
And then below that is going to be the Ottoman Empire.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Are you excited about this one?
I am.
Because your eyes are very bright right now and you're like very animated. I mean, you're always animated, but you're like super, your energy's very awake right now.
Listen, so I find this to be very fascinating. Dracula actually is one of my favorite, classic literature stories. Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
Who wrote Dracula.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite authors. His book's really good.
Are you really? Or is he really? I did not know that he was one of your favorite authors.
Yeah. And I've seen just about every depiction of Dracula since I became really big into it. I've always kind of liked vampires, but certain kinds of vampires, so I find this to be interesting.
Do you like sparkly vampires?
Not quite. Those don't hit the same.
No, you're right. I mean, they can hit a baseball.
That's true, but it's not the kind I like. No, I like me a good classic vampire.
Nosferatu.
Yeah, sunlight's bad, garlic bad, anything holy bad.
But do you like sexy vampires or not sexy vampires? Because the original vampire was not sexy.
You're right. Nosferatu, who was probably one of the first filmed vampires on television and movies, was not.
Culturally, they were terrifying. They were awful.
Yeah.
So.
And actually, while we're on the subject a little bit, I want to talk about this a little bit. They actually have some roots in Romania for vampires. They came from this other creature that's called, oh gosh, I'm gonna try and pronounce this, but I might say it wrong.
Okay.
It's called a sturgoi. Sturgoi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sturgoi.
Yeah, so those are thought to be like, they're more like ghosts.
Yeah.
Spirits of the deceased who have a lot of like unfinished business.
Yep.
And they feed on blood of whoever they're haunting, to sustain themselves, and basically they just bring a bunch of like bad to whoever they're haunting.
There is actually a book by the horror author Bentley Little. And it has, I believe it's by him, it has a Sturgoi in it. Hold on, we're gonna pause so that I can look. All right, we're back. So the Bentley Little book is called The Summoning, and it does not have the Strigoi in it. I don't remember what book I read that has that in it. I'm going to have to do a little bit of digging. But The Summoning is also really good. Bentley Little is kind of a disturbing and like obscure horror writer. Like, he's a little peculiar, but I do enjoy his works. If you like Stephen King and Dean Koontz, I think you'll like Bentley Little. So highly recommend him. Go read The Summoning, and I will try and figure out what that other book was.
Yeah. Now, moving on to what we're actually here to talk about.
Which is not Sturgoi.
No. They just happen to be Romanian, so I just thought that was interesting. So before we dive into Count Dracula and whereabouts he came from, you first have to take a look at the man who inspired him.
Vladimir Dracula.
That's right. It is Vlad the Third. Dracula was his name, or Dracula, I think is how you say it. I don't know. His father was Vlad the Second, Dracul.
Oh, the second was Dracul. Okay.
That's right. So they actually got their name whenever Vlad the Second, he became an alliance of the King of Hungary at the time.
Okay.
And he joined what was called the Order of the Dragons, which was a knighthood that was determined, like their whole purpose was to keep the Ottoman Empire out of Europe. So if you didn't know, the Ottoman Empire was like this massive Islamic empire in the 15th century.
Right.
They owned everything south of Europe, so like Turkey and all those countries down there.
Okay.
But they wanted to expand into Europe.
Oh.
So it was like knighthood, this order of the dragon was meant to keep them out of Europe. Gotcha. And keep the hold on like Catholicism and Christianity, which is what those religions were in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So Vlad II, that is Dracula's father.
Okay.
He joined that knighthood, and that's how they got the name Dracul, which translated to dragon.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
So
that's cool.
Naturally, that title was passed down to his son.
Yeah.
Vlad III got Dracula, which means son of the dragon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And
that's
then
cool.
In modern Romania, it's funny because in modern Romania, Dracul actually translates to the devil.
Oh.
So Vlad would later be called son of the devil.
Oh my God.
Which some would argue is a very fitting name for him.
Oh, yeah.
If you know anything about this man.
Oh, yeah.
He, that name probably suits him.
Better than Son of the Dragon.
Now, that's debatable.
No.
Because over in Romania, he's a hero.
Okay, but my heroes don't put heads on pikes. Okay.
We'll get into all that. So, we're going to start with first the man who inspired Count Dracula. That is Vlad the Third, Dracula. He was also known later as Vlad Shepesh, I think his name is pronounced, which means Lord of the Impaled.
I'm not going to lie. I thought you were going to say Chappelle.
No.
And I was like, oh, okay. Did not expect to go that way with it.
So we'll start here. Vlad III was thought to be born between the year 1428 and 1431. They're not sure exactly what date he was born.
Right. Back then, you just freaking popped out a baby and,
Well, he was born in a small town, actually owned back then by the Saxtons. I don't know if you know anything about the Saxtons.
I do. In fact, I believe that there may be Saxton in my bloodline.
That's interesting. So, for those who don't know, Saxtons they're of Germanic descent. They were mostly made up of merchants. And at this time, they had migrated into Transylvania, or Transylvania area, right along the border between Wallachia and Transylvania.
Okay.
So right there on the border of Hungary and Wallachia at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was born in this town called, I think it was called
Try. It's okay. She's going to butcher it, guys. She's sorry. We're sorry.
Yeah. I think it's pronounced Zigasosha or something like that. That was probably way wrong.
Zigasosha.
Yeah. Something like that. I'm sorry for pronouncing that.
Probably nothing like that.
Nothing what it sounds like. Okay. Anyway.
That is the laugh of like, oh.
Back in that era, the areas of Wallachia and like Hungary and Transylvania, they were all always in battle with who owned the territory. It's very, very Game of Thrones is what it was back then. Okay. Basically, the most powerful family would capture the position of leadership and ruling of the land. So it was a constant power struggle.
Okay.
At the time that Vlad was born, he was born a prince of Romania. His father, Vlad II, was ruler of Wallachia, which is the northern territory of Romania. This would continue on probably until about 1447, where his father would actually end up being assassinated by some rival clans in the area who looked to seize the throne from his family. Now, before this happened, Vlad II actually had made a deal. It was the Ottoman Empire. He kind of like sold his sons out in order to remain in power at the time.
Wow-wee.
And this was because he had 3 sons. This was his 2 younger sons. So Vlad III and his younger brother were actually handed off to the Ottoman Empire.
Oh, that's up, Dad.
Right. So part of Vlad's life was spent being raised by the Ottoman Empire, who actually surprisingly continued on with his Catholicism teachings.
Oh, okay.
And taught him how to be and act like a prince and a warrior.
Okay.
Because they wanted to use him to their advantage as a bargaining chip later on when he was old enough.
That makes sense.
So they did not want to convert him to Islamic.
Okay. That makes sense. Smart.
That being said, during this time, him and his younger brother would end up splitting sides as far as views on the Ottoman Empire. Vlad III, especially after he got word of his father's assassination in 1447, would decide that he was going to get revenge.
After he gave them away?
Yes. Because not only did they assassinate his father, but his older brother, who was at the time ruling in his father's absence, was, I'm going to say trigger warning to all of this, because everything from this point on is going to be horrifically graphic.
Like violent?
Violent.
Okay. So is there anything else we need to warn about?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. So his older brother was actually buried alive, but that's not the worst part. Before they buried him alive, they gouged his eyes out.
Oh.
So...
Well, how? I mean, like, never mind. I don't want to know.
No,
wait. Yeah, tell me. No, wait.
They use like these hot rods and they soldered his eyes out. Okay.
Yeah. I hate that.
So,
imagine having hot rods stuck in your eyeballs. You don't want to.
That is actually tame compared to the stuff that Vlad the Third would later on do. So, keep that in mind. Vlad the Third was probably more terrifying than any of the legends behind Count Dracula.
Oh, okay. Is this going to be a two-parter?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, after he received word of their deaths, he decided he was going to get revenge on the Ottoman Empire and basically anyone who had wronged his family.
Then your daddy. Oh, but he's dead already.
Right. So by 1448, Vlad actually makes his way back to Wallachia and steps into the throne for the first time. Okay. I say for the first time because throughout his time as rule, he was on and off the throne maybe 3 or 4 times just because of the power struggle. And throughout that time, there were a couple of times where he lost power and was imprisoned for some time.
So he repeatedly comes back into power.
Yeah. Altogether, Vlad the Third would rule for about 7 years.
Okay. That's it?
7 horrific years that would stain the history.
That's why I'm surprised. I thought he ruled, he did so much. I thought he was there for, a lot.
I was surprised, too.
Longer.
When I found out he only ruled for 7 years in total. I was like, he did so much.
Right. All right. Well, all right, let's go.
So at the time that he stepped in, he was actually only 17 years old.
Really?
Yes, he was young.
I mean, I guess back then that was an adult. Because, you think lifespan back then, if you were 30, we'd be rickety old women, Lindsay.
Yeah, you're right. So at the time in...
Pause. For context, we actually had to, I had to cut a big chunk of time out because Lindsay's notes are not in order, and she just sat there, flipping through her notebook. So I'm wondering how many more times we're going to be doing that.
Listen, to be fair, a lot of this I have memorized, so...
Oh, okay. Well, you're doing good so far.
All right. Yeah, like I said, in 1448, he would step into power for the first time. So this would be the first time that Vlad would actually make his stay at the famous Bran Castle. And if you don't know what Bran Castle is...
Bran, N as in Nancy?
Yeah, B-R-A-N. Bran Castle.
Okay.
If you don't know what Bran Castle is, it's actually marketed as the famous Dracula's castle, which, ironically enough, has almost nothing to do with Vlad.
Okay.
Because Vlad only stayed in Bran Castle in passing at least 2 or 3 times.
So it was his personal hotel 3 times.
He was passing through the area and needed a place to stay.
So was he mostly just off warring?
Yes and no.
Okay.
We'll get into that.
Sorry, I have questions.
So, yes, in 1448, he stays in Bran Castle for the first time. While he's there, he creates an alliance with the Hungarians. That way he can kind of solidify his rise to power in his father's place. They then put him in charge of defending the border of Transylvania and Wallachia, because at this time Wallachia was under power by the rival clan that had killed his family.
Can I ask you a weird question?
Yes.
When you visualize this, do you visualize this as you're researching it and stuff?
Sometimes.
What does the sky look like?
I don't know.
What?
Why?
I'm just wondering, because I'm visualizing it as constant warring.
Mm-hmm.
So to me in my brain, the sky's always gray or red.
I could see that for smoke and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, I never picture a clear sky. But
yeah,
anyway.
no, I don't either. Not during times of war. It just doesn't fit.
Continue. Sorry. I was just curious.
But yeah, so like I said, at the time he was put in charge of defending the Transylvania borders from Wallachia, because the rival clan had ownership of Wallachia. And that at this point in time, that was his big focus.
Okay.
He wasn't worried about the Ottoman Empire, the Turks. He wanted to take back Wallachia, his home. and get revenge for his father and brother's death.
Right.
Which he would begin to do in about 1456. That's when he would make his first big move.
Just so you know, we're flipping notes again.
All right, so yeah, in 1456, he would actually get back the capital of Wallachia, which was called Targoviste, I think is how you say that. I'm sorry if I say that wrong.
She's all red in the face, guys. She's like, oh no, I can't.
This would be one of his strongholds for quite a few years, up until at least 1462. This stronghold was well known because when he arrived to the capital, this was the capital of Wallachia. So when he arrived there, he knew that his life was in danger because he was surrounded by enemies.
Yeah.
Okay. This was after he had gained back the capital. So he knew that anyone could probably try and assassinate him at the time. So he would, anytime he would eat or drink, he would have his servants test the food
poison
first because he didn't want to be poisoned.
Right. Imagine if that was your job back then. Just like you wake up every day and there are like at least a minimum of 3 chances that you're going to take a bite of something and die.
Right.
I couldn't live like that.
He actually reinforced his fortress there in the capital by it had like a wall. The first wall, it looked like it was made of like wooden pikes or stakes. Okay, this wall was about 5 foot tall.
Okay.
Beyond that wall was a moat.
Okay.
That I think it was pretty deep, pretty long, all the way around the entire fortress. And then once you got past that moat was another 5-foot wall.
I'm picturing this, and I'm just wondering,
the ruins are still there. You can look at pictures of it.
I just wonder why the wall's shorter than I am. You said there's like pikes on it?
They were slanted. They're like made of slanted spikes.
Oh, they're walls of spikes. I don't know why I missed that. I'm sorry. I zoned out for part of what you were saying. Wow, because I was visualizing, but because I was like visualizing, I was zoned out, so I was only picking up part of what you were saying. I was picturing like a 5-foot tall brick wall. I was like, what is that going to do? They'll swim across the moat and climb the other brick wall. Okay, sorry.
Now, so imagine trying to get through those obstacles while you have this massive fortress that is showering you with arrows, because the fortress had slits in it in the towers, because this fortress had massive towers that gave like a whole view of the whole area, and they were fitted with arrow slots and like little holes where they would dump boiling oil onto anyone who was attacking the fortress.
How about no? How about we don't imagine that?
And that's all before you get through the reinforced stone walls.
You know what would be more fun to imagine? A fruity drink in my hand on the Florida beach. Okay? You know what would be more fun to imagine? Being in my car broken down on the highway. Literally anything that is not boiling vats of oil.
Well, you'll come to find that in every one of Vlad's fortresses, this was a common theme.
A boiling vat of oil?
Yes. It was one of his ways of
just
hurting people.
Think about what it feels like when you like splash hot oil on your hand.
Yeah, now imagine like a whole pot of that getting dumped on your head.
All over your body. Oh God, no. Just kill me. Just don't want it. Like if you did that to me, I'd be like, no, just kill me. I would rather not.
If you didn't die on the spot, I mean, that's...
All I can think about is my eyes. Like
I just imagine how messy that was, just like melting, everything melting.
Stop it. Move on. Move on.
Okay, all right.
Because I can feel it, and I don't like it.
All right, so very quickly, Vlad knew that he had to establish his power here in Wallachia. So what he decided to do was invite as many lords of the surrounding areas as he could to the fortress.
To dump oil on them.
To have dinner. He called it dinner, okay?
Oh, boy. I don't like where this is going. I've read about Elizabeth Bathory. I don't trust this.
However, when they arrived, he greeted them by impaling them.
Vlad the Impaler.
There were said to have been about 500 lords and nobles that were impaled and left to die outside the fortress.
500?
500.
Holy. Okay.
And when you think of being piked, what comes to mind? I'm just curious.
A lot of things.
Okay, how do you think he did it?
How do I think he did it?
Yeah.
I don't want to say I don't want to say he like shoved it up their boom boom.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, Kat, I have a question.
Okay.
I think I can guess how he did it. And this is going to get graphic. And I think I can guess because I've read a lot about medieval torture.
Okay.
Because I'm weird.
Uh-huh.
I like how you just agreed with that.
I'm just waiting to see if you're
right. So
I
read something that said that they would sometimes they would very slowly they would hang them above a pike and slowly lower them onto it. No? Wrong?
So it was something similar to that effect. He actually, you think of pikes being sharp pointed. His pikes were rounded.
Ooh, okay.
They were
different.
rounded tips. The tops of them were greased. And then they were inserted up the rectum.
Well, at least he used lube.
And then he would let the person stay on these pikes, and they would slowly come down.
So, yeah, they would slowly slide down onto
him by their own body weight. So this was a very slow and agonizing death.
Yep, that's how they did it. And back then, that's exactly... Now, I didn't know about the rounded pike, but I knew that they would, use people's own body weight. So
yes, this was actually his preferred way of torture and or execution.
That's horrible.
Thus the name Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad Sepesh.
Go on.
Well, it gets better.
Does it, or does it get worse? Because there's a big difference.
We're not there yet. So after this, Vlad decided that he wanted to rebuild an old castle that he believed sat on a very important summit in the middle of the three warring lands. This would be the mountain, I believe it's called a Pinari. Okay. I don't know how to say that. This was actually the Dracula's castle.
Okay.
This was the sanctuary that Vlad took pride in. This was his sanctuary.
Okay.
Pinari Castle is still there. There's not much of it left. And it's very hard to get to, so it's not as popular as Bran Castle, nor as...
as a tourist?
Right, nor as well known. Pinari Castle was originally built in the 1300s. I didn't look up any more into its history. But by the time that Vlad came across it, it was in ruin. So when he decided to claim Pinari Castle as his sanctuary, he had to rebuild it.
Okay.
And in order to do this, he took the nobles and the lords that he didn't pike outside of his fortress.
And enslaved them.
And forced them into slave work.
Yep.
They were forced to cut a path through the forest up to this castle and rebuild it by hand.
So I feel like they'd be really bad at it because they were, they probably never worked a day in their life.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because of the way that Pinari Castle is constructed. Was so finely tuned that a master craftsman would have had to have been involved because the whole castle sits on top of a mountain summit in an area that is prone to earthquakes.
That's my dog, guys. I'm sorry.
And they actually used a lime mortar to put the bricks together.
Okay.
Which made the walls flexible.
Oh.
So when earthquakes would happen, there would not be earthquake damage done to the castle.
That's really smart. That's interesting.
And the castle was built to hold water in a very intricate water system that only a master craftsman who knew stonework would have had to put it together. The slaves weren't the only ones involved in creating this sanctuary on top of the mountain.
Interesting.
Legend does say that those who did not die or work themselves to death rebuilding Panari Castle, he did end up piking them once it was complete.
Oh, nice guy. At least you know what to expect from him. You know, no surprises. You know where you're going to end up at the end of the day, and that's nice. I like it when I know where I'm going to end up at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't work yourself to death, you're going to end up on the wrong end of a stick.
Yeah. Again, I like knowing what's going on.
So Panari Castle was actually built in like a very strategic way. And it was built in such a way where you had to literally climb up the side of the mountain to get to it by ascending over 1,400 stairs.
Damn.
Yes.
What the hell?
It is not easy to get to.
I would never. Okay? No.
And these are very steep. This is a very steep climb.
You would have a very disproportionate body. Like, your legs would be massive, and you would be tiny.
That's part of why it's not a really big tourist spot today.
Anymore? Was it ever?
I don't think so. I don't think it's a very big tourist spot because of how hard it is to get to the summit.
Yeah. That's like a full fucking pilgrimage.
It really is.
But not a religious one.
And it would be at Panari Castle where Vlad would make his last stand, so to speak. So, in 1462, I said before, he wasn't focusing on the Ottoman Empire at the time.
Right.
He's been in charge of Wallachia now for quite a few years. But the power was always changing. Enemies would become friends, and friends would become enemies.
Sounds like high school.
All the time. So, at this point in time, the Ottoman Empire had their sights set on Wallachia. So, sometime around or after the construction of Panari Castle was completed, Vlad was chased out of Wallachia.
Okay.
By the attacking Ottoman Empire.
I'm going to halt you abruptly. So we paused for a moment and analyzed some of the names. So if she's pronouncing them differently, it's because we were just like looking at the spellings, trying to figure out how they were pronounced. I mean, we're probably getting them wrong regardless.
I'm still going to say them wrong.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can't speak any of these languages.
But yeah, we're trying.
Yes.
But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So he was chased out of Wallachia by the enemy, the Ottoman Empire. And at this time, the Ottoman Empire had become an enemy because of the constant alliance changes throughout the area.
Mm-hmm.
When the Ottoman Empire actually marched into the capital of Wallachia, which is where one of Vlad's fortresses was, they were met with a site that stretched on about 7 acres and a little over 2 miles. Vlad had left them with a scene right out of a horror movie.
Okay.
He had piked allegedly around 20,000.
What?
20,000.
20,000?
Yes.
And how many miles? 2 miles?
A little over 2 miles in an area that stretched about 7 acres.
Oh, no. Okay. Hold on. I need to, breathe for a minute, okay? Just give me a minute. Holy cow. 20,000? 20,000? I'm sorry. I'm just over here trying to wrap my brain around that. Okay.
Yes.
What did you think when you read that?
I thought that was an incredible, that's so many people. And supposedly these were all people that he had just, from enemy territories that he had just gathered and captured.
Oh
and
God.
Regardless of who they were, or their age, even their gender, the women and children were not exempt.
Children?
Yes.
Are you... What kind of... I hope that man has a pike up his boom boom right now and is being roasted slowly for the rest of existence. I mean, I realize he's dead, but if there's an afterlife, I hope that's what his is. That is horrible.
Yeah, it's heavy. It was so horrifying that when the Ottoman army arrived on the scene, the Sultan decided to retreat and they fled in terror.
I would too. Wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, that I couldn't imagine just marching up. Their army was 3 times the size of Vlad's, but
her head she said marching up with her head bobbling.
Yeah, and you're marching up there, and then you come to this just sea of
dead bodies. Can you imagine what that smelled like?
Some of them might have even been still alive, depending on how long they'd been there for.
I feel like that would just, because, I mean, think about it. You drive by a dead deer. You can smell it. It, permeates the air.
Oh, yes.
I can't. How could they not smell that, coming up on it? I mean, I guess maybe a lot of things, even towns stunk back then, so maybe it wasn't the same as, smelling things now. But oh my god. Okay.
And he wasn't done there. Supposedly on his way out of Wallachia, Vlad went as far as to poison water supplies, burn crops, and even pay the sick to infiltrate enemy lines so they would spread disease.
He paid the sick? He paid sick people to go make people sick?
Yes.
Okay, whatever, dude. I mean,
anything he could to thin out the numbers.
It's not funny, but it's kind of, I don't know. I want to say it's stupid, but it's actually it's like a stroke of genius. It's really ingenious. It's like the equivalent of biochemical warfare.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Except instead of being bacteria or diseases being dropped in the air, put in the water, he's just sending people out to cough on people.
Yeah, he did all this so that way by the time the army arrived, they would be starving.
Oh,
and
man.
Sickly.
Yeah, kind of hard to fight whenever you're starving.
That's right. And to just leave a scene of terror and horror there at their wake too. That is just. That's making a statement.
Oh my god.
He would go on to actually make his next attack, though, in 1459.
Okay.
Where he would once again return to Bran Castle, which is, Dracula's famous castle.
Yeah.
While he was there, he rallied his army to go and attack what I believe at the time was the capital of Transylvania.
I mean, so honestly, at this point, I wouldn't even be attacking. I'd just be gathering up more sick people. Be like, hey, can you do me a favor so I don't have to go into war? Can you just go cough on this guy? Thanks.
I don't know if there was enough sick people to
back then. Oh, I'm sure there were.
Yeah, there were a lot of diseases back then, like tuberculosis and the plague and all those.
Right, and they didn't have vaccines.
Yeah, right. They didn't have the modern medicine.
Right. Or, real doctors. I mean, they had what they thought were real doctors. Kind of.
Yeah, they did their best.
Good try.
His army would march into a city in Transylvania known as Brasov. I think it's pronounced. Or
okay.
Brasov.
I don't know. She says these things 2 times and looks at me like I have the answer. I do not have the answer.
Anyway, this town was known to be extremely fortified, one of the strongest cities in Transylvania at the time. So penetrating it during the day at a full-on attack just wasn't plausible.
Okay.
They had walls that would keep people out if they wanted them to.
So walls that did their job?
Yeah, and lots of guard towers.
So they were pretty well watched. They were watching.
It was a fortress town.
Gotcha.
Okay. So Vlad decided that he was going to surprise attack them at night.
Do you know how many generals and rulers and stuff I've heard that are oh, well, I mean, I didn't hear them, but they're oh, we're just gonna surprise them and go at night. Do they not put soldiers? Do people not watch their, like...
Well, I mean, there probably were a handful of
A
guards and things.
handful?
Who knows? But Vlad did something different than what some of these other, historical army people, what have you, did.
Yeah,
Okay.
the historical army people.
When he ransacked the suburbs and the little towns on the outskirts of Brasov, he captured as many people as he could, and then he piked them on the hillside right outside the city gates.
Oh, like outside their own city.
Yes.
Okay.
So that way, when the sun rose on another horrific
Oh my
scene.
God, that is dark. That is so dark.
Allegedly, thousands perished that day.
Whoa. Whoa. What
Yes.
the hell? This guy is a beast, and not in a good way. Oh my God. Okay. So here's what I knew about him. I knew he was called Vlad the Impaler because he piked people.
Yes.
I didn't know how many fucking people this motherfucker piked.
Oh my God.
Okay. Go on. I'm as ready as I'm gonna be.
So after he essentially takes this town, he decides to set his sights on another important point. This was like the center of the trade routes, and it would later become the capital of Romania.
Okay.
The town is called Bucharest. Yes, so Bucharest.
That's such a fun name.
Yeah, I think today it is the capital of Romania.
Okay.
When he decided to take it, he realized how important it was to the surrounding trade routes.
Sure.
Existing trade routes at the time. So he orchestrated basically like a whole citadel be built around the town to reinforce it into like another small fortress type. So as many people as he could gather, like craftsmen, like masons,
Merchants?
all kinds
Just
all kinds of people were brought in to quickly build
Okay.
this fortress.
Okay.
And this would become another place that he was known to
Pike people?
stay at. I mean, that's always his favorite.
That's
form
what
of
I was going to say.
execution.
Because, that's
You
like
can
what
imagine
he does.
wherever he is, he's piking people.
Oh. Wow. Who would have thought? I always wondered how you got a name like the Impaler.
Oh, yeah. Actually, he was given that name by the Ottoman Empire.
I mean, I was kidding, but go on. The Ottoman Empire, they walked up on that fucking scene and they were like, oh, no, I know what to call this guy.
Yeah, so from what I heard, the name Vlad Tepes, which roughly translated into like Lord of the Impaled or something, was given to him by his enemies.
That is so... Okay, go on. I'm stuck on that scene. Like the Ottoman Empire, the poor souls that walked up on that scene are the ones that gave him that name, and I don't even blame them.
Okay, so after he established Bucharest and, was able to control the trade, he would make the last known stance to fight, where eventually he would have no choice but to fall back to Poneri, like his sanctuary in the mountains.
Right.
From that point, when it looked like they were going to lose. Okay, they were on the losing end of the enemy. It's said that Vlad fled the castle and sought help out in Hungarian allies, while his wife, yes, he did have a wife.
Okay. I don't know who would marry him, but go on.
While they were pushed back and surrounded at Poneri Castle, she supposedly decided that she did not want to become a captive to the Ottoman Empire.
Okay. So
she would decide to then throw herself from the castle and into the river below.
Oh, she unalived herself?
Yes.
Or was she trying to, escape?
No. She decided that death would be better than whatever they would subject her to if she were to be captured.
That sucks. I mean, I get it. Like, all the stuff that he's done, I can only imagine. that there'd be some revenge coming for him and like the people that are associated with him.
Well, legend says that the river that she fell into ran red with her blood
Oh my god.
upon her death.
For real? Was it like a tiny river?
It's the Argus River.
It's
called the Argus River.
I don't know how big that river is. I just feel like a river, like, so like say it's the size of the Ohio River, like your river would not be able to.
I don't know if
Or your blood would not.
I don't know if it's that big of a river.
Hold on, I'm going to see how far across it is. It's 2 miles wide. There's no freaking way.
That's just what legend says. The river was then nicknamed the Ladies' River, which some say it's still referred to today as, because of the legend.
Okay.
After 1462, Vlad would be imprisoned for almost 10 years.
Only?
Yes. So his allies turned on him when he sought help. So thought that they could use him for like political gain or something at the time, and they imprisoned him.
Okay.
Now, it's said that while he was in prison, he continued his practice of impaling.
How?
In his prison cell. He would do this by peeling up little pieces off the wooden floors of his prison cell and proceeding to pike mice and bugs.
What?
Lived in the cell and would display them along the windowsill of his cell.
Whoa!
This guy was twisted.
Those poor mice. What the fuck?
I think now this bloodthirst here, and back at the Battle of 1459, is what linked him to vampirism, because he had this thirst for blood. It's rumored that while he was imprisoned, he survived by drinking the blood of rats.
Well, I wish that he had drank the blood of a bubonic plague rat.
The battle in 1459, where he piked everyone in the hillside, actually led to the famous depiction of what was called the Forest of Corpses.
Okay.
And it's an image in this depiction. It shows Vlad sitting at a table and having a meal while he's amongst the piked corpses.
Dude, what? This guy. Okay.
And
Forest of Corpses?
Yes. And this is where the rumors started that he actually drank the blood of these victims and ate their flesh. Which there's no real record of. There was like a theory out there that because of the way he piked people and how slowly they would die, he would have to eat his meals. If he was stationed out there waiting to attack this city, then yes, he would eat his meals
around these people,
among the dead.
I mean, I feel like
dying.
I feel like, when you're at war, really at any point in time, like you're gonna be eating around dead people sometimes.
Right. But that's one big thing that linked him to this vampire perspective. It's not the only link, but it is definitely one of the big ones.
Okay.
So he's in prison for 10 years. After 10 years, he's finally released from prison because power switches again. His allies switch again.
Okay.
So Vlad is released. To which point he returns to Bucharest.
Yeah.
And attempts to take the throne again. But this time it doesn't last.
Good. He doesn't deserve a throne.
Shortly after he returns to Bucharest, after being in prison for 10 years, he is captured. And then legend has it that he was actually captured and executed in the forest just outside Bucharest.
Okay.
At a site known as Witch's Pond.
Oh. Now, you know what's weird is Witch's Pond actually came up in a Google search yesterday whenever I was online. But go ahead.
Yeah, so Witch's Pond has a story of its own. It was known to be the site of lots of witchcraft practices, and the water was thought to be cursed and have magical properties.
Okay.
Supposedly, no animals live near or in the pond, nor will they drink from the pond.
Okay. That's interesting.
But legend says that he was beheaded around Witch's Pond in about 1476 or 1477.
Mm.
From that point, his head was said to have been sent to the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire as proof that Vlad
He
was
was dead.
And they would go on to display his head on a pike. Now, supposedly, his body was entombed on an island under a monastery, I think it is, called Snagov. This was like a religious site. His body was supposed to have been entombed there under the altar. However, many years later, scholars would exhume the tomb and find it empty.
Oh, no. He's a vampire. I know where this is going. This guy rose from the dead. This is probably where they got you have to cut off a vampire's head, too. I'm putting stuff together. But where's his body?
That's the thing.
No, don't even say it. Don't say it. Don't
no
say it.
record.
No!
Nobody knows what happened to his body
No.
or his head.
What? They don't know what happened to his head either?
His remains have never been found.
Oh my god, this guy, I bet he's really a vampire walking around. He's gonna eat us. Not us. Don't eat us.
It's definitely one of those stories that fueled the Dracula kind of story. Like, it doesn't help that that Bram Stoker came in later on, like in the 19th century, and kind of used his fictional story to fill in these little gaps by using Vlad as his inspiration.
I don't like that his body and his head are missing. I don't like that.
Yep. No one knows where he actually died, how he died.
But they do know he died. For
yes,
real.
Yes, he did. He was killed. They think he died in some battle.
Okay.
But like I said, there's been no record of where or exactly when that might have been.
Okay.
Because his body has never been recovered to this day.
I don't like that. I'm uncomfy. I'm uncomfy.
Now, there was a story where they said that the reason why they couldn't find the body is because after being executed at Witch's Pond and his head being taken back to the Sultan, his body was then cut into tiny pieces.
Oh, okay.
And, like, thrown into the sea.
Okay.
So nobody could, like...
find it. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
You know, like, you make some kind of shrine or something.
Make him into a martyr type deal.
Yeah. With his body. But, again, there's no proof of that either. So
I don't care that I'm gonna say that's what happened. I don't like the other option there.
Well, that was just that's the history on Vlad. Now, he was the inspiration for Count Dracula.
Right.
Like I said, he didn't actually have any concrete ties to the famous Dracula's castle. He was there a couple of times. Maybe more. There's no real record of that. He just happened to be passing through the area. So.
Right. All right.
So he was purely just the point of inspiration from Bram Stoker's Dracula.
It was a based on situation.
Right. And he, of course, borrowed his name. So.
Right.
So now you know. Now you know. That's a little piece of dark history for you there.
We like some dark history.
I like to think that the history of Vlad is much more terrifying than anything Count Dracula could have done.
Yeah, because it's real. It happened.
Yeah, Vlad's body count was estimated to be roughly 100,000.
Oh, God.
In his lifetime.
Can you imagine? Like, people are, I mean, and I'm not, like, death is, it's a lot. So, like, you know, someone who, like, killed 10 people, a serial killer, that's a lot. I mean, one person's a lot. But can you freaking imagine? There's a serial killer whose name is Willie Pickett. or William Pickett. And he kind of made a comment whenever he was in prison that was like, I wanted to reach 50, because he wanted to have so many and he wanted to put this other guy to shame who had quote unquote only gotten to like 42 bodies. But I kind of feel like the real competition here is not this other guy, but might be Dracula.
Yeah. Yes. Well, to put in perspective, he was actually only in power for about 7 years.
Yeah, that's... So if we do math, if we divide 100,000 by 7 years, if you break that up evenly, he would have killed over 14,000 people a year.
With just that 20,000 that he piked to scare off his enemies, I believe he could do it.
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
I hate it.
Especially with how cruel and ruthless he was, because there were stories that he said that he would pike even petty criminals.
Can you imagine, living in around that area at that time and being one of his enemies? Can you imagine?
No.
That would be terrifying. That would be fucking horrifying.
Say you were like a petty thief, okay? Like you stole, I don't know, like an
apple.
Yeah. And you were sitting in one of Vlad's cells waiting for your trial. Which he did hold trials. If he just deemed that your crime was bad enough, instead of just doing something minor, his preferred way of torture and execution was piking you.
That's insanity. Good God.
Lots of people said that he was a madman, but in Romania, he's a hero. He fought for freedom of Romania.
I mean, I guess that's fair. There was a thing that I read the other day that said, if I destroy your country, I am the enemy, but if you destroy my country, you're a hero. How does that make any sense? So I guess, it's all about perspective, I guess.
That's true. It's crazy. It's still really scary either way you cut it.
Yeah.
So next we're actually going to discuss the castle, the famous castle from Count Dracula, because every famous vampire needs a castle.
Right. Yeah. But we're going to discuss that in episode 2.
Right, because we're a little out of time.
So be sure that you catch us next week for episode 2 whenever we delve even further into this and we look at how Dracula came to be born from Vlad. And if you enjoyed this episode of Macabre at Midnight and you like spooky things, then you can catch us on Amazon Music, Apple Music, Audible, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and more. You can also help us out by liking, rating, and subscribing. We're always looking to improve. We want to know what you guys have to say. You can also follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok. You can find those links in our biography wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you want to hear us talk about something that fits on the scale of screams, or you have an experience or short work of your own horror fiction that you'd like us to share in our new listener library, then just send us an email at macabatmidnight@outlook.com. Until then, remember to lock your doors, sprinkle a little bit of salt in the carpet, check under your bed, stay spooky, and we will see you in your nightmares.
Good night.